On Wednesday, December 16, 2020, NINAS launched the first phase of the three-pronged attack against the 1999 Constitution through the Joint Multi-Regional Constitutional Force Majeure, unhinging the legal basis of the Federal Republic of Nigeria by outlining its 5-point proposition, giving the unitary government of Nigeria the choice of either reconstruction or dismantling itself, following a robust, constructive, and structured framework by which this inevitable reconstruction or dismantling can be undertaken to avoid the anarchy already looming over Nigeria. The 5-point proposition of NINAS are as follows. The unitary government must formally acknowledge that there exists a constitutional grievance and sovereignty dispute as raised. 2. A formal commitment by the unitary government of Nigeria to decommission and jettison the 1999 Constitution in its entirety, as was done by Frederick de Klerk of apartheid era of South Africa in 1990. 3. The suspension of further elections under the disputed 1999 Constitution, since winners of such election will swear to uphold and defend the defective Constitution. 4. Initiation of a time-bound transitioning timetable to allow the emergence of fresh constitutional protocols by a two-stage process of referendum and plebiscite and negotiation on the outcomes of the referendum and plebiscite. 5. The indigenous people of the South and Middle Belt to work out their future via a transitional authority. Without much ado, I yield the mic.
Thank you. It is my pleasure now to invite the NINAS spokesperson, Mr. Nnadi, to throw more light on the topic. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, and welcome everybody. I will also say congratulations to all of us for the progress being made. I'm sure most of us saw the call for prayer rally. There's a prayer altar that have been raised by the Nigerian Christian Elders Forum, the NCEF, which had been interacting with us of late, and which issued a communique, I think it was on the 16th of April, where they expressly pointed the ethnic nationalities of Nigeria to the this same 5-point proposition of NINAS as the way to go. Anybody talking about the 5-point proposition is already saying that the constitutional force majeure, that entire proclamation, is a good reason, is good, articulation of a process, and then a procedure coming down to the 5 points of proposition. That is a summary of what action needs to be taken on account of that proclamation and all of what led to that proclamation, because that's what you see inside the proclamation, that the owners of the sovereignties of Nigeria did undertake a 20-year process that culminated in that force majeure of December 2020. By that I mean that the NCEF, having satisfied itself that the alternatives that are being bandied all over the place, the ones who say let's go to 2014 conference report, and the ones who say let's go to 1963, NCEF is satisfied. Having brought those ones, I can report to us, having brought those alternative propositions to interface with ours in terms of you present what you think, then you listen to what the other person is saying. All those propositions were roundly defeated, because we were able to tell those ones who are talking about 2014 conference report that it is because the Nigerian state, the operators of unitary Nigeria, are struggling to avoid any discussions with the owners of the sovereignties that are conscripted into Nigeria, forcefully conscripted into Nigeria. That is why they want to fall back to a discussion that has happened in the past, but which again avoided those owners. The British avoided those owners in 1914. The treaties they signed, whether it's of trading or of protection of the various groups they had those treaties with, they didn't go back to those owners of the lands that are covered by those territories. Of course, they took advantage of the illiteracy and the ignorance of those the rulers of those kingdoms. Illiteracy in the sense of English, knowledge of English language. They had their own languages which they were fluent in. They probably could write in it, but because the protection and trading treaties were written in English, particularly the protection treaties, those kingdoms, those kings in those kingdoms didn't know they were signing off their sovereignties. So when in the period leading to 1914, when in 1900 the British Crown took over the concession areas of the Royal Niger Company, the British Crown didn't come back to the owners of the sovereignties that were covered in those territories of those treaties, and they just consolidated all of what they had into what became the Union of 1914. So they basically swindled the owners of these sovereignties of their lands, ancestral lands, and became the new ultimate owners. They stepped in as a suzerainty. Sovereignty never leaves you. The only thing, if you're not able to exercise it, because a supervening sovereignty is upon you, that was what happened in the colonial era. Supervening sovereignties, jumped upon the sovereignties in those places. So while Britain was doing its own in Nigeria, France was doing its own next door in all those francophone spaces. And so it was basically not, and this information I've given to you in the days ahead, when as we go deeper into the operational details of our propositions, we're going to be armed with more and more evidence of what we are saying, that the people who did it actually documented it as having done it, that they swindled the owners of the natives. That was how we were described in the colonial records. They swindled the natives by doing what they did of their ancestral lands, and they knew at the time they were doing it that as time progressed, that those natives will get enough education and information to want to recover their sovereignty, because nobody can take your sovereignty away from you except they wipe you off from that space. As long as the land is there, occupied by distinct nationalities that own it, like Yoruba land is occupied by Yoruba people unchallenged, that sovereignty attaches to that unchallenged occupation by them of their ancestral land. It is their ancestral land and their Yoruba people. As it is with them, so it is with the Igbo, so it is with the Ijo, and all those sovereignties were what they consolidated, forcefully and without authorization or reference or even some kind of approval. They carried it forward to 1959, the Lancaster House meetings. They had now created the Eastern region, Western region, and the Northern region, plus Lagos colony. So that in that discussion that happened in Lancaster House, it still was not the owners of the sovereignty that were discussing. It was the political actors they had raised. And so it became the business of the parliament in England to pass what became the 1960 constitution. By 1963, they had stepped into, at the time, everybody thought, oh, we have become a Republican. What they did in authorizing the parliament of the time to carry on with, to step into the shoes of the British, again, they still did not talk to the owners of the land. And so it remained business between them and the politicians whom they had all kinds of, leashes against by way of blackmail. I mean, politicians that could not talk back to them because of the skeletons they all agreed to preserve in their cupboards. And I can tell you 1,000 such skeletons associated with the politicians of that era. And so when we came down to the one of 66 and all of what went wrong that became 12 states from May of 1967. Again, it then became just decree upon decree upon decree. We saw, I'm sure many of us saw the 2-minute clip of where Murtala Mohammed was commissioning the Ben Mwabweze and Rotimi Williams to do what got done, that became 1979 Constitution, processed for them by Obasanjo, who worked on the draft that Murtala Mohammed commissioned in 1975. And then, of course, it was carried forward in 1999, and that's where we still are to this date. And the reason everybody is running the operators of the Nigerian state, the unitary Nigeria of now, defined by that 1999 Constitution, the reason they are running helter-skelter in search of some kind of happy and way is, other routes to where they want to be, as against what they have now realized is an end of union for them. End of union in the sense that the constitution that lied, that we the people, having solemnly resolved to live together, made and gave unto ourselves that constitution, whereas in section 14(2)(a) of that same constitution, it acknowledged that sovereignty belongs to the people, from whom government, through this constitution, derives all its powers and authority. You can't get about a constitution through any other way. If we're talking about a federation, it is the union agreement between the constituents that will federate, and the powers required to make constitution are constituent powers residing exclusively in the owners of the sovereignties. So the first thing you have to do is to mark out the lands. Who are those we the people? Who are those we the people? You must identify them. You then go to them firmly and solemnly agreeing to live together. Is it not by sitting down and negotiating, I bring this, we take that, and then the formations in which they want to live, and all of the powers they will sit to the center, and what they're going to retain? Those are the things that they have to negotiate. They've never been allowed to negotiate those things from 1914. They've never been allowed, they were not allowed to negotiate it in 1960 in the man, other than by middlemen nominated by the British. They were not allowed to negotiate in 1967 by the time even the little discussions they had in Lancaster House got toppled. They were not allowed to negotiate in 1975. They were not allowed to negotiate in the 77 Constituent Assembly that became, it was just nominees, people they just select to come. Murtala Mohammed, Obasanjo just selecting 50 men. Of course, Awolowo was told what was going on, and so he didn't turn up. So there remained 49 of them. And so in 1999, they didn't even bother to call any Constituent Assembly. They just say that most people want a return to 1979. That didn't come from them. The same preamble you see in 1999 is what you see in 1979. And when you look at that Murtala Mohammed clip and what the confession of Ben Mwabweze that carried out that instruction of Murtala Mohammed to write a constitution for a federation, writing one constitution ahead of calling the meeting of their nominees that now processed it into a draft that could be signed into law by Supreme Military Council. The important thing I'm trying to take from all of it, so you can understand why their desperation now, since we have, the National Assembly and the government and all of the caliphate and those who have been sucking the blood of others here, since we, by our constitutional force majeure, has succeeded in unhinging the legal basis of the Federation of Nigeria on account of our success in asserting the truth that we never agreed to be in any union. There was never a meeting, and then we didn't write any constitution. Having asserted that, we have delegitimized that constitution. It has lost its life, and we saw the way the patriots in Lagos in their colloquium captured it, because that National Assembly that thought the caliphate all these years thought that anything about constitution, yes, must go to National Assembly. The balance of their co-travelers from our spaces were also thinking in that grave mistake, because all these years, even the lawyers amongst them have been taught the wrong jurisprudence by the Mwabweze, who eventually had to recant his position in 2013 when we confronted him with the wrong jurisprudence of carrying on as if our sovereignty was now in the hands of government. So it was that altercation, with that public exchange, because he had gone to molest Jonathan, the President Jonathan, who took the trouble to listen to us, examine the documents we put on the table, and was planning to summon a conference that will, some kind of a political reform process that will visit the foundation we complained about. One person then went to molest him. Before then, in 2007, at the time we were planning to go to court to challenge the illegitimacy of the Constitution of Nigeria, I had at the request of Chief Enohoro and the other plaintiffs, I had sat down with Professor Bangwabeze to show him what we are going to do in court, and to ask him what would be his approach if the federal government of Nigeria were to hire him to defeat the matter. After 3 hours of exchange, he told me that if we took this matter to court, that he couldn't imagine what answer anybody could find. That was his answer. Okay, come and lead us, since you were involved in how the making of it, so that the federal government will know that this matter has come to where there has to be a U-turn somehow. He declined for whatever reason. That's private to him, and he's not here to tell the balance of the story. But there's nothing I've said now that was not said when he was there, alive. And so we went by ourselves. It fell on me to file that suit, so that the government of Nigeria, particularly the federal government, will come to show us where they derive their powers to hold us together in this union and to govern us in the manner stipulated in that constitution. The Attorney General of Nigeria came joining issues with us, but he admitted our case to say that yes, it is what is written in the constitution that we have brought before the court for interpretation, because we limited ourselves to what is in that 14.2a, which is the requirement, what is in that preamble, which is what they are claiming they did, and what is in decree number 24 that they printed in error, which showed exactly what they did. So decree number 24 shows the truth of what they did, that they didn't call the owners of the union, they only called their friends, and they all agreed they would go back to 1979. That was fundamentally flawed too, with the same falsehood in the preamble that it was we, the people, that did it. So it became a double whammy for them, a double jeopardy, because we had the two versions. They printed the second version at the time we were raising that challenge, that now removed that decree number 24 from they tried to remove it from circulation. But what they did in the first edition had gone to the diplomatic missions. That's what the international community had as Constitution of Nigeria. So they couldn't. It became a mess, such that even today, you get into the traffic, you are likely to find the older copies, because now the one amended 1999 Constitution has amended. All those nasty amendments don't change anything. They are going to go down with the document on account of that false claim that we, the people, firmly and solemnly resolved to live in unity forever as one indivisible and indissoluble country, and therefore that we made and gave unto ourselves that constitution. As long as that falsehood is standing there, we don't have a constitution, we don't have a union, and the remedy available to those who are trapped here is what we are dealing with now. The National Assembly was thinking they could go and make constitution. Of course, we confronted them frontally to tell them that they were committing treason against us, since they are products of that same constitution, and that the sovereignty that belongs to us exclusively, inalienably, with the self-determination, right to self-determination that belongs to us, consequentially, exclusively. That is, nobody can take our sovereignty away. Nobody can take our right to self-determination away. Even the British, in some of the reports, some of the colonial records that we eventually obtained, the British said that when the natives wake up to what the British had done in swindling them of their ancestral lands, that they will approach the League of Nations to assert their right to self-determination. Can you see it? That the British, at the time they were doing the amalgamation, did say that when the owners of this land get education and exposure to realize that they've been swindled of their ancestral lands, that they will approach the League of Nations. What's the League of Nations? The United Nations. They changed their name further down the road. At the time of that report, it was called the League of Nations. So the British that conscripted us forcefully into this union, already, documented in writing that when we got to the age of knowing what, when we got to where we know what we get to know, what transpired, that we are most likely going to approach the United Nations to, recover our right to self, on account of our right to self-determination, to recover our sovereignty fully. And you could then imagine what was going on in Britain the day we turned up at the UN, because we included it in that letter, in that notification that we wrote to the UN Security Council and Trusteeship Council. Our people who do not understand what we are doing, they were looking at whether we were such a multitude to shut down New York, or we shut down Lagos or Port Harcourt. They didn't know that we were talking to the very demons that locked us down, in the language that defy any kind of thing, including the guns they had stockpiled. That you did this, and we have come to where what we are coming to with, we are asserting, because you don't need anybody's permission to assert your right to self-determination, meaning to the retrieval of your sovereignty, which is now made much more easier for us by the fraud of implanting our signature on a constitution that was not discussed with us. What that meant is that from the time in 1999 that constitution was imposed, even the one of 79, if there were people who were a quarter as vigilant as we are, a quarter as determined to recover the land as we are, a quarter as committed to getting it done, they will have recovered it. You lock all of us up in a prison compound. You forgot the bunch of keys in the cells where you have put us. Do you still have us in custody? That's the kind of thing that you put our signature on a document that is 100% responsible for taking our land, taking our rights over the land, taking our economic resources, confiscating guns away from our hands and putting in the hands of an illicit federal government. That's even another kettle of quarrel. That we should have been a federation, and they truncated the federation, and they still turned up as federal government. Federal government is supposed to be a union office in which we are the ones who are supposed to be doing whatever will become federal government. But they decapitated the regions and took all the economic assets and loaded into that 68-item exclusive list. So it is in knowing all of this, because we are here today examining what it is that how can this 5-point proposition become the answer to Nigeria now? Why is it we are saying that there's no other way to proceed safely or meaningfully? Now, if you want to know the nature of the problem that has to be solved, we have seen all the problems. Everybody knows that killings are happening all over the place. Everybody knows that poverty has overtaken the land, so that Nigeria is now poverty capital of the world. Everybody knows that the infrastructure is not there. Everybody knows that corruption is there, dancing naked on stage. Everybody knows that impunity is there. And we began by pointing everybody to why things are the way they are. Those who are waving flags, whether it's Odua Republic or Biafra Republic, we are able to show everybody exactly what is behind the problem they are confronted with, what their grievances are inside that constitution. The ones who are waving flag in Yoruba land, for instance, are simply saying on what terms, by what discussion did Yoruba land submit their people into this union of death as claimed in that preamble. That is what the people they are holding in Ibadan for the invasion of Ibadan. That's what they are saying, in case anybody does not understand it, whether it is the federal government or the DSS or the whoever is trying to prosecute them. They may not have they may not have said it in this manner we are saying it, but that is exactly what they are saying. Under what arrangement, by which discussion did Yoruba land solemnly resolve to live in unity with Fulani, and then writing that agreement into constitution? That is the false claim, as we have explained. That is what the Yoruba self-determination activists, that's the question they're raising. And in raising the flag and doing whatever else they did in trying to assert their self-determination, it is because it is their right. It is because that right is inalienable. It is because their sovereignty is inalienable to them. And so no matter how anybody may try to criminalize anything, the government and the people that went making all kinds of other brokers as to why they are coming to do what they are doing, yes, they may be ignorant. The two sides, the federal government that is accusing them is ignorant. The people that sent them from the safety of their own hideout are ignorant. But we placed a plan on the table that could have returned that land to them without anybody shooting at them. But some charlatans want to claim credit for recovering Yoruba land all by itself, forgetting that there's a Nigeria like a monster occupying the entire place. 300 and something language groups. Ijo is in that prison. Igbo is in that prison. TV is in that prison. Everybody else is in that prison. And as long as that constitution is there, all the guns are in the hands of the illicit federal government. The laws they made, that constitution and all the other laws that criminalize everything you try to do, they are still there. If you don't organize yourself in a manner that overwhelms them, they're going to isolate you and deal with you like all the other ones they've dealt with before. In 1966, that Isaac Boro raised the flag of Niger Delta Republic. What was he saying? Under what conditions did the Joland become, or the Niger Delta become part of this mess? That was the question. Self-determination, sovereignty. When Ogoni and Kesaru rose up, the same thing. The ones who are waving Biafra flag, whether it was a Maso or IPOB, the same thing. Under what conditions did the Igbo land come into this bad management? That they could be killed in the manner they are being killed. That the economic access could be taken in the manner it's been taken. That's the question they're asking. And so what NINAS has done is to aggregate all of those grievances to say, it is this constitution, it is this imposition, it is this false claim that is behind all of what is going on, whether is the agitation in Niger Delta or the flags they are waving in the east or west. The killings happening in the Middle Belt, it is this constitution that put the guns in the hands of those, the Fulani that could invade, the army that is controlled by Fulani that will not stop them, and prevent the thief that could shoot better than them from touching gun. They see gun with you, they fire at you in the name of a federal government of Nigeria, Army of Nigeria, DSS of Nigeria. So these are live issues. These are issues that must now be resolved. These are issues that must now be engaged. Otherwise, the remedy, and that's unfortunate for the system, the remedy available to those who are complaining is the one that does not require any meeting with anybody, if the ones they can organize themselves. And that is what NINAS has done across the last 25 years, to get them to see what right they have, get them to organize themselves in the formations they could, so they don't go fighting one another at the instance of the enemy that organize all the acrimonies. You go to the east, you see acrimony. You go to the west, you see acrimony. The same people who are holding us down are the ones organizing those acrimonies. And so NINAS went house to house, region by region, explaining to them and getting them to get into an alliance with internal cohesion in each of the blocks. Yoruba is lucky, one language is not difficult for the Egba and Jesha to discuss. But in the eastern side, you have to bring the Robo, the Anang, the Epic, the Ijo, the Igbo, to everybody stand on your father's plot. Very simple. That right to, that sovereignty that you claim belongs to them as far as their space is concerned, unchallenged. That right to self-determination you want also accrues to them inalienably. That is, little Isoko, little Ishekiri, little Obon can hold their own, while medium Ijo, medium Urobo, medium Anang and Efik hold their own, Big Igbo, Big Ijo, and all of them hold their own. Everybody, nobody's land overlaps to the other side. Everybody stand on your father's plot. Okay, what do we hold sacrosanct in these areas? Do we hold life sacrosanct? Yes. Nobody's going to say life will not be sacrosanct. Do we hold all men equal in terms of born equal and to be treated equal? Oh, yes. Do we want education for our people? They will say yes. Do we want, food and housing and the basic? Once they agree on all of those things, everybody standing. So you group them together. Then you begin to craft the kind of rules that will enable the economic access. Because if you agree that everything belongs to everybody from the onset, it takes care of the question of ownership. So if in your own land there's gold to be found or there's oil to be found, It belonged to you. You came to the table. In the first republic, at independence, it was 15% that agreed that will go to the center. So whatever be the, whether it's 1 tier, whether it's 2 tiers, or whatever be the arrangement, you go with those principles that the owners will be on the table. The ones who could exercise power, who are big enough to be a region of their own. If they are not big enough, they could be province of their own. If they are not even big enough to form a province, there could be a group of counties that will become one province, or a group of provinces that will have the power of a region, in that manner. So you sort out everybody into what will become the arrangement that will then be called constitution. And so our 5-point proposition is in having identified these 3 fundamental false claims of that constitution that has brought us to no constitution and no union. I was talking about the colloquium in Lagos that said that constitution of now is illegitimate. From which day did it become illegitimate? From the first day in 1999. They say it's of illicit origin. They say no amount of amendment can cure it. So National Assembly has no business in what is left, since sovereignty belongs exclusively to the people to decide how they do what they do to live together. And if you want to know what they need to do now, just like we went to that preamble to know what went wrong, what NINAS is saying is that it is a lie that we the people solemnly resolved to live together forever indivisible. It is a lie that we then made this constitution for ourselves. In the face of that lie, we have delegitimized that constitution by the campaign we mounted against the foundation upon which Nigeria is standing, upon which, that foundation of lie, upon which we now have a humongous federal government with all kinds of powers loaded into 68 items of exclusive list, and the monopoly of gun and the power to elect who will go to impose who will govern us. Look at the mess Imo State fell into because there's an INEC in Abuja. Look at what happened in 2023 presidential election because there's an INEC in Abuja, and all kinds of things. And so, having identified those 3 fundamental falsehoods that has brought us to no union, what is the remedy available to those who are choking under those falsehoods to recover their sovereignties? We have put a plan to avoid anarchy on the table, and that's what brings us to that 5 points, to say we have come to the point where, because if we go to another election, whoever wins that election is going to swear to defend and uphold that same abomination when he does win. So the political parties that are telling us they're going to take us to El Dorado, or take us to production from consumption, or do whatever they are promising. No, we'll still have 36 states, 7 government areas, and the Federal Capital Territory that will be financed every month. 812 governments. From the 5 we had when things were working, there was money to provide for the citizens. And so it's not going to, there's no kind of outcome from election that will solve this problem. It doesn't solve the problem of our sovereignty having been confiscated forcibly from us. Is it the election that will solve that? And all the things that the structure that has now made us permanent political minorities, besides the actual minorities that have become political majority, because they were creating all kinds of states and council areas that become basis of representation in Abuja and basis of sharing of resources and opportunities. And so what we have to do now still falls into that 3 folds in that preamble. Who are we the people? Who are that we the people that we have to federate? Now that the pulling back of our signature, that false signature they put there, we have pulled it back. By the solemn assemblies we did across the 3 blocks, we have pulled back our signatures. The ones who seceded into Sharia, already we're not discussing their affair. Whatever happens there, whatever the Hausa, the owners of the land decide to do, they have this right to self-determination like the rest of us. If they allow the Fulani to come and beat them up and retain it after 200 years of brigandage, well, it will be their choice. But if they also want, they can stand on their own space and take back their land just like we're taking back our own. But in this very time, because of the Sharia they all adopted, we didn't hear their shout when that Sharia was being imposed. We say, let us finish with our own space. Our union is dead. The federation we had died when the constitution that brought us together, were toppled. The fraud they imposed on us, we have defeated it. Is no longer able to hold us together as a union. They were not anarchists. That's why we're offering transition. That's why we're making these elaborate campaigns to get everybody to see, including the government, to say, we have no quarrel with you. You are just a management team. We are discussing the affairs of our company. Stay out of it. Let's finish whatever we have to do. The only thing you can do, since you are the one occupying the premises, you can come and it is done. Maintain the day-to-day, law and order in terms of paying salaries and making sure that things are running, but leave the owners of the land to go into this meeting to decide what they're going to do. And those who now want their lands and their rights back are being invited into into the reversal of those three falsehoods. How do I mean? The claim that we the people, that's the first thing that has to be established. All of us who want our land back are saying we must now proceed to where we identify the constituents of this federation, if we are to have a federation. Yoruba of Yoruba land. Where's your land? Where's the map of it? Where's your own constitution? Because a federation is a union of sovereignties and therefore a union of constitutions. So Yoruba will do in the first stage of the item 4 that have been read out to you. It is the 5-point proposition of NINAS is the mechanism by which you can resolve these three false claims peacefully at this time, even with the government in place, because we're only demanding that government acknowledges this, grave inconstitutional injustices that have become matters of agitation across the length and breadth of Nigeria, and total instability. We insist that that bad arrangement has to be decommissioned wholesale. All of us are together in that. Even the government, from the point the National Assembly said they were going to write a new constitution, they may not have intended it, but they had admitted that the other constitution is dead, or whatever was our complaint about it is valid. They thought it was within their province. They thought it was within their right to go and write another constitution. So they announced it gleefully, thinking that we're going to be rejoicing when they say so. But they were surprised. We then told them, wonderful. Now that you realize, no, it's not for you. They are now looking for how to escape from what should happen. That's why they are falling back on 2014 to pretend that the peoples of Nigeria had agreed. Let's not call them again. What happened in 2014? They were not allowed to, it wasn't the peoples of Nigeria that got invited to the meeting. So the people who came to 2014 conference could not pass the test of we the people. You see, we're still in that preamble, trying to understand clearly what needs to happen now. 2014 conference did not pass the test of we the people. We the people means is the Yoruba, the owners of sovereignty, that decided at home, first that they will federate with other people, and therefore send a delegation with constituent powers to go and discuss with other people who have also emerged through the same delegation with constituent powers to discuss future with other people. So that first leg of identifying who will federate. The second leg is the negotiations that will then justify the claim that we firmly and solemnly resolve to live together. That's the second leg of what must be done. The third leg is now codifying, writing down what we have done in the first two layers. So those three things that must be done now to refloat the ship of state, if Nigeria will remain one political union, are the things this 5-point proposition were set down to resolve in an orderly form. Let us accept we have done this wrong thing and it is causing us injury. Nobody can say no to that. Nobody can say it's not so. Let us accept we have to decommission wholesale. Nobody is in a position to say so, to say no now. Let us suspend the journey to any further national election, because whoever wins is going to have to reinforce this constitution that is the source of our misery. Anybody who is saying no to that is the enemy of the people, number one. So that if I have only one bullet left in my rifle and I see a Fulani marauder from wherever he comes, I will not expend that one bullet on him if I have the opportunity of spending it on my twin brother who has chosen to swear to defend and uphold this instrument that empowers that enemy to even come to me at all. So all of us must be of that attitude that no further elections can be discussed under this constitution. Otherwise, we will remain where we have been since 1967, since after Aburi. What was it we went to discuss in Aburi that became war later when they abandoned the agreement? Was it not how do we live together in peace? How do we live together in equity? How do we live together in a union of equal partnership, a union of sanctity of life, a union of equality of men? That was what they went to discuss in Aburi. That was what the federal side abandoned and began to kill people to the tune of 5 million by the admission of Gowon. Gowon said we had to kill 5 million people to keep Nigeria one. From that time to this date, they've avoided, they've evaded, they've blocked, they've refused to get into that discussion. And people are dying. People are being impoverished. Things are just so very bad. 220 million people thereabout. Many of them are on economic exile overseas. Others are running away to just anywhere, dying in the process. And so we insist at this time, all of us, that we can't allow any bunch of people to come talking about the election on the basis of this constitution going forward. Whatever we can do to stop them, whatever we need to do to stop them, we must do. Because if they drag us further, we're going to get deeper into the mud we have been. NINAS was shouting like this before 2023. Those who will live in that misery, those who will be killed in the manner they are being killed now, those who will live in the poverty that is now deepened, in the free-falling currency that they have to spend, they refuse to listen. They have 3 years now to listen. They are not listening. The church leaders are there. We are not hearing their voice now. But we had them all over the place when they were talking PVC to go and vote in an election mandated by a constitution that kills their people. We believe that enough have been said, enough of showing everybody what choices they are making have been done. And so those who are now awake are going to take things, much more practically in terms of saving themselves from the tyranny of the stupid majority. Stupid majority. I'm sure some of us, most of us must have watched the video titled The 5 Laws of Stupidity. If you have not, get on YouTube and watch it. So you can see how those who are stupid, those who are unable to think, those who are thinking of only their pocket and on their bellies, will in their large numbers, in their ignorance, in their obduracy, drag everybody else into the same pit. Because if anything happens, if we're in the same big ship, if it sinks, all of us will go down with it. Like, is there anybody that is getting dollar at any cheaper rate? Is there anybody that is buying food at any other rate than what others or fuel? But it was because they went to election that we fell into this mess. And so that question of that item 3 is critical. Nobody can argue item 1. Nobody can argue item 2. That item 3, the politicians will want to argue it. But your life depends on stopping them. If you know what to do, if you know what to tell them about what the consequence of their action will be, that this constitution that took everything from you, that exposed you to danger of death, is what they are going to renew the life if they go to election. So it is sufficient reason for boxing and wrestling. It is sufficient reason for boxing and wrestling in the very community wherever you find them. PDP, APC, Labour Party, whoever. Tell them that you will not allow them. If you allow them, then you truly deserve to perish. If you allow them, you truly deserve every evil that befalls you. If we have 3 years between now and when they gather again to vote, this is the time to stop them before candidates begin to emerge. So, item 3 gone. Item 4 is now where the 2-stage procedure that NINAS insists on is what parts of the sovereignty go home and decide in the first leg that they will be in union with the other members of the defunct Nigeria Federation. How would they make that decision? By referendum, regional referendum. It doesn't matter It's not business for INEC or anybody from outside their land. Yoruba will do their own. They will make out their constitution that a constitution that will make them a country if they were to be a country. Whether they federate the Egba and the Ijesha and the Jebu, or they prefer unity, whatever it is they want as their constitution, if Nigeria were to cease to occupy their land, they will craft it. In the eastern side, whatever the Urobo, the Anang, the Efik, the Ijo, the Igbo want, they will craft it. It could be one, it could be more. But if they discuss well from what we have done so far, it's just propositions. Everything we're saying at this level is proposition until it goes through referendum. But it must go through referendum nobody's going to be allowed to carry on without taking this matter to referendum. That's the right we have earned now from all of what we have done. This matter has to go to referendum. And in those two stages, the federating units, we the people have to be identified in that first stage. And they will agree on what they will keep and what they will cede to the center or anybody else. Then you come to the second stage where they are now having agreed among themselves at home to go to meet others who have done the same at home. It is in that second layer that you come into that second part. It is in the second layer in item 4 that you come into the second part on that falsehood in that preamble. You can see we have cleared the question of who are the people and what they have to do to identify themselves properly. It is in the second leg of having firmly resolved to live in unity together. That item 4 that say 2 stages. First stage, we the people. Second stage, having resolved to live in unity. That is where the negotiations will happen. I hope I'm coming through.
Yes, you are coming through, sir.
Okay. All right. And so it is in that in that second stage, I want us to get it very clearly. Because when we say it must be in 2 stages, I'm connecting our 5-point proposition to the 3 falsehoods in that preamble that must be resolved. We very much understand the one of we the people. That's the first stage of the 2 stages in item 4. In the second stage, now having to resolve among ourselves to either be in unity or not be in unity, and in whatever formation, all the negotiations of what will become the union in terms of we agreeing to be in union and we defining the terms of that union, because that's where you now begin to see the formations. How many is it in 4 regions or 10 regions or 20 states? Then the exclusive list, what are we asking the center to do? It may be only 5 items that we choose. The rest come back to us. How many tiers of government do we have? Are we going to have? Today, local government has been smuggled into as a tier of government. It's not supposed to be so. Nobody should talk about local government. It's the internal affairs of the federating units, however they do it. And so it is in that second layer, it is in that second leg of the 2-stage procedure we say in item 4, it is in that second stage that we resolve the second anomaly in that preamble. Settle all of the terms of the union and the question of being in union first. Then we come to the finishing of it. When we have done all of this, we then write it down. That is what becomes constitution. We came with our own charters that have become constitution, regional constitutions. We then distill what we are going to do with the center and how it will be done. Who will be paying for what? Who owns what? That's where the question of settlement of the ownership and control structures come. You can shout from now to the next 50 years, resource control. Then they call you to one small meeting and say we are going to move from 13% now to 18%. 18% of what? 13% of what? Are you there on the table of Shell and NNPC producing over your head to know that it is 13% of what they carried away that they brought back to you as your share? It is very lazy. It is very stupid. With all the kind of educational exposure that you allow people who own no part of what could go 100% to you to sit in some kind of a place, summon you like school children to come and begin to demand, give us, it's no longer enough. You don't want to go to the table of where that thing is determined. Are you timid now? Have we become so timid that we can't take over our assets to manage it by ourselves and pay whatever we agree to pay to the center? Because that's what a federation should be. At the beginning, it was 15%. We have to be in that federal government. We are not by appointment of one casino man that will then choose a lunatic from your space. If the federal government is the union office of the federation of the federating unit. Therefore, it is you who have to anoint, appoint, select, elect whoever you're going to send to represent you there to do any business in Abuja or in wherever the capital will then be, or whatever we agree as we go along. So item 5 is, once we have all agreed that item 5 is the formal time-bound announcement covering items 1, 2, 3, 4. The reason we call it a 5-point proposition, some of us will say 5-point propositions. They are not different propositions. We just broke down one transition proposition into 5 component parts for everybody to understand exactly what has to be done, who has to do it, when it has to be done, in the sequence it has to be done, and how it will all result in the outcome we seek. So it is actually a one transitioning union reconfiguration proposition, highlighted by the transition that has to happen now to be able to undertake it. You may shout restructuring for another 50 years. Unless you do something that puts a date on it, which is what NINA's 5-point proposition has done. You've done your election. We are not concerned about who among the thieves carried the day. All of them who subscribe to that constitution are of equal iniquity before us. Whether it's Labour Party of P2B or PDP of Atiku, they are of equal iniquity before us. They subscribe to a constitution that ruins our lives. We have no preference for any one of them. It's just like coming to ask me to separate the fight between 2 robbery gangs that stole, two robbery gangs that are fighting over how to share what they took from me. And so we say that this 5-point proposition of NINAS is the last call, is the last narrow corridor for resolving the Nigerian constitutional dispute that could go the way of Yugoslavia if we don't. We have no constitution. We have established that, because you can't say that the falsehood enacted by Absalom Abaka in 1999 by Decree number 24 has become the basis of the loss of my sovereignty. The people who are keeping it and sharing the money of it, whether they came from Sokoto or Kano, or they come from my backyard as senator in Abuja, as governor in Enugu, they are all together in that crime, which we call treason, against all of us. Whether they're in the executive branch or they're in the National Assembly, even the state assemblies, everything they are doing in the name of governance, every institution, army, police, DSS, federal government, president, senate, NNPC, central bank, all the institutions are anchored on that constitution. And we are saying that it will be a disaster if that whole edifice will crumble all by itself. We have put on the table a mechanism for reworking what is choking us to death, what has impoverished us to becoming the global poverty capital, what has chased the bulk of our best brains overseas and young people. It is a question of life and death for those who are on the other side, swearing to defend and uphold that constitution, planning to vote an election on that on the basis of that constitution. We are saying that it is the last opportunity that everybody will have to solve this matter in an orderly form, in a non-violent form. Otherwise, it could explode anytime by itself, anytime. Because those who are being slaughtered are not going to endure death. They've endured the expropriation. For the oil you have sold for this length of time, you kill those who challenge you, before now. How many are you going to kill? Now that others have also come into the same distress. Yoruba has to now endure the killing of their kings, of their people. Ijo has to continue to endure the stealing of their economic assets, the devastation of their environments, and now you go and set up military operation. And so you came to make a community peace. It takes being blind not to see that what has happened in that place was what happened in Ogoni land the other time, when Ogoni chiefs were killed, and then they blamed the people next door, Kensaro Wanko, as the ones who did it. You decapitate the entire leadership of Ogoni because Ogoni was saying no. Anybody may write any report or say whatever they choose to say. That is what we are seeing until we verify. That is what we suspect is going on. Why can't we go and resolve the issues behind all those acrimonies that become shoot me, I shoot you? So that's what I think we can take for one evening. The 5-point proposition of NINAS accommodates all sides. Nobody is to be, nobody is being shut out, including the government. We say stay in the place, like Frederick de Klerk and his government, elected under the apartheid constitution. They only did what those 5 terms. They came to a date in 1990, and Frederick de Klerk, President of South Africa, went on air to say, gentlemen, this apartheid constitution that was imposed by this minority to own everybody can no longer carry us. We are going to decommission it completely. We are going to suspend all elections for going forward under that apartheid constitution. We are going to allow the owners of the sovereignty, not the Boers that imposed the constitution, to sit down and negotiate what will become constitution for them. And in making that announcement, he said, we're going to do it in so-so period. That's the exact 5 points of proposition that we are placed on the table, accommodating all of those who are in government house. I think we have presented it in a manner that those who want to be truthful to themselves will understand it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for this very insightful explanation. It's now time for question and comments. Any question, any comments from the audience? If you have any question or comment, kindly raise your hand or tap your mic twice, and you'll be invited to do so. Okay, in the absence of any question or comment, we'll go to the next item. Mr. Onyago, please, you have the floor for the key points.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening all. It has been an exciting discussion today. The key points is that NINA's solution for Nigeria's problem is very straightforward. As a matter of fact, looking at it, it's quite easy. The only problem is that our people have become too lazy, just like the spokesperson have said, mentally and otherwise, to pick up this challenge to solve our problem. We talked about also the men of God. It's also a shame because they're supposed to shine lights, another religion is supposed to shine lights to bring truth to bear, have completely denied it. They have gone in bed with our political leaders. They have forgotten the role that the church played
in the freedom of black people in America, led by Dr. King Jr. And so we keep kabashing and praying in forms of prayers, casting out demons, not doing that. The real devil we are looking at is this constitution. We believe in foundation powers, we believe in village forces, all of that. None of them compares to the foundation problem of this constitution. This constitution is that devil, is that foundation problem affecting everybody. You can see the evidence in the suffering in the land. But the NINAS has stated that with this five-point proposition, we can easily solve our problems. The NINAS has done so much by eradicating the ignorance that many of us used to have about our situation. The NINAS has exposed a lot of things. Whose responsibility it is to create the constitution. We believed narrative before now. Even the Christian forum I was opportune to attend, which was last Sunday, is because many people there to also believe that it is the National Assembly that's responsible for giving us a constitution. So the people themselves don't even know whose duty it is. They don't even know what the process entails to rework our union, to address and to create a new constitution. We don't even have an idea about it. And so that is why we are being tossed left and right. Leadership is not also the problem. NINAS has always stated that leadership is not the problem. We've gone through election now. Before the 2020 election, you were canvassing for us to go for election. Election is over now. Can we now go into transition as the next thing? Okay, so NINAS also stated that the people cannot be avoided. All of the processes that are taking place over the years to give us a constitution, to amend the constitution, to do whatever that it is, have all avoided the people from the very beginning. The delegates were not from the people. Leaders will just come and select people that they choose, share money, lobby within themselves, and come together to do what pleases them. We continue to have this. So this is very, why I draw the point from foundation powers, devil and all that, is to also know the importance. I know that the spokesman has echoed this more than enough, but it seems to us that many of us have not gotten it. The gravity of this problem weighing us down, weighing our children, weighing our generation, everything. We are tied down by this constitution, this union, this system we find ourselves. And it must be addressed. It must be addressed. And people must be carried along. It's clearly that something belongs to the people, just like the illustration the spokesperson has used with the company and the workers and the employees. Truly, the employees will not have the right to create the structure for their owners. This is what Nigerians ought to know. And so we must rise up. We must rise up now. We can continue repeating the same of election over and over again with no results, leading us to nowhere. Changing leaders who are not even the problem, they're just a product of the constitution. And they will continue to repeat. So I have also come to believe that no longer in a federal system, we are not in a feudal system. It's feudalism, not federalism anymore. Because some group of people who have succeeded, not just that they succeeded, they now lord it over everybody. In a country where we are no longer citizens but slaves, we do not have rights. The things that we look at as rights today are just privileges, which can be taken from you at any time. And we cannot continue in that. My pity for many of us who are becoming fathers, who are fathers, to give your children into the same bondage. Die off, your children continue like that, the generation unborn. It cannot be accepted. So this 5-point provision is a clear, straightforward process. It's not as complex as I think it is. Sit down, have a conversation, decide on what we want to do with ourselves and our nationalities, take whatever we have discussed at the center, and discuss with the other group, and come together with whatever we have agreed, becoming our constitution. I think this is what I have to say about these key points, and I hope that we'll be able to push forward. I know that there's a big fight, a very big fight. The resistance, which are those who are sponsoring this current constitution and whatever that it is that is in place, the colonizers who are also in support are fighting on every angle, including the social media. Discover that when you post content like this out there, there are restrictions. So this fight is direct and indirect. So we have a big challenge ahead of us, and we must put in so much work to push this narrative. There's a lot of resistance coming from the other side, because they know when the people are aware of this, freedom will come. I think that we'll be able to achieve this result in no time. Like the spokesperson has said, it is time bound. We need to really achieve it even before the next election. So with this few points of mine, I think I'll be able to itemize these key points. And so I leave the mic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Onyago. Please, Adoma, you have the floor for closing remarks. Adoma, you have the floor for closing remarks. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and good evening, everybody. And thank you so much to our amiable NINAS spokesperson. Thank you for all the clarifications, and thank you, the NINAS Secretariat, and all who are present here, and those who are going to listen to this broadcast in the future. May God bless you all. We keep hearing the solution to the messy and muddy situation Nigeria has found itself. So, in this situation, nobody can say that he hasn't heard about NINAS and the propositions of NINAS, or that he doesn't know what they are talking about. Let us say it again. NINAS means Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. And you can equally put survival. You can equally put self-governance, self-defense, self-worth, self-esteem. And all these connects to what you are as an individual and as a people with your own values, core values. So at this juncture, one may even ask what values mean. In a nutshell, I will say values are the beliefs and the principles that one believes to be important in the way one lives and works. So these values determine your priorities and guide your decisions and the way you act towards others. And all these aggregate and you put it down and they become people's documents, social contracts, constitution, and all that. In the first place, is Nigeria a nation? Does Nigeria have values? So who is a Nigerian? And what are the values of Nigeria? These are simple questions Nigeria can never give any answer to. And it is too bad and unfortunate. Some time ago, the politicians were bent on holding the indigenous peoples down. They came up with a mantra of change begins with me. They are dictating to you. Change does not begin with them. It doesn't even end with them. But they want you to change. And what is that change? Is it change of behavior or change of mindset? How can they define that change they want? So, Nigerian system does not allow or support honesty and integrity. That is why Nigeria is currently in a deep mess. And also, that is the reason why NINAS is there to right the wrongs of these politicians who swear to defend, preserve, and govern with a fake document, namely 1999 Constitution as amended or as patched or as recycled or whatever. And any policy by these politicians any policy they make aggressively and negatively affect the polity. And this polity is the people. So right now, Nigeria cannot define and differentiate between the indigenous peoples or natives and the citizens. Right now, Nigeria encourages fake life. Fake life is as a result of lack of core values, lack of identity, and no recognition of the sovereignty of the indigenous peoples, that is the natives. So if one comes to their anthem, it has no meaning. Their anthem, Nigerian anthem, has no meaning. Arise, O compatriots. Who are those compatriots? Nigeria call, obey. Who calls and who obeys? To serve our fatherland. Which fatherland? Does Nigeria have any fatherland? With love and strength and faith. Who loves an oppressive system? With which strength and faith? And then coming down to the labors of our heroes. Who are those Nigerian heroes? What labor did they do that shall not be in vain? Is it the so-called heroes who killed people, committed genocide? And they keep killing till death. And the other stanza, to serve with heart and might. They continue to loot, steal, with vigor, with strength, with heart, with might. One nation bound in freedom. Like we said, Nigeria is not a nation. And it is never bound in freedom. It is bound in enslavement. There is no peace. And they cannot force people to be in unity with you. So, what are the values of the Yoruba, indigenous nation, the Igbo, indigenous nation, the Ijo, and all that? What are their values? Because these values are what we are talking about. The values of a sovereignty, the values, the core values of a people. It is a shame when some politicians come and tell you, Nigerian people, we are one people, you must be committed to Nigeria. Which Nigeria? So, the issue is, let everybody listen to NINAS. NINAS continue to lay out these simple 5-point propositions. And these propositions, once we do them, we come to peace, progress, liberty, freedom, and all that. And every person will be safe. So, at this juncture, I will thank everybody and wish every person well as we continue in this journey. I think it is coming to an end. My spirit tells me that this journey is coming to an end. So, with this, I say, I yield the mic. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Adama, for that generous remark. Mr. Nadi, please, do you still have any contributions?
Beyond thanking those who have come again, in our small numbers, we can see that we now have a large network of people who have taken it upon themselves to break through the barricades of the government blockade, the media blockade, the political party blockade, the church leaders blockade to get to the people. That's something to rejoice about. So our task is made much lighter, that our propositions have been placed before the people, and they are being invited to prevail on their political leaders, wherever they may be. Maybe at the world, it may be at the state, it may be at the national, whoever are your leaders, whether they are church leaders or traditional rulers, prevail on them. That is what they have been, that's what they've been invited to do. And so they are just going to wake up to where a larger number of people are now face to face with this proposition they've been trying to block. That's one item. Let us also be very mindful as we preach around. Let's be mindful of the nomenclatures. The nomenclatures, very important. Everybody else is saying a new constitution for Nigeria, a new constitution for Nigeria. Say to them, new constitutional arrangements. Let me tell you the difference. New constitution means you can just go and write another constitution now. Lisabokobo can write one, or Bozekome can write another. Emeka Anyoko and Petro can write yet another. But if you start by writing constitution, when are you going to identify the owners of the sovereignty? When are they going to negotiate? It is in the attempt to avoid those two that they rush you to we write another. So National Assembly want to go and write. They say, okay, everybody come, let's write another constitution. And so it is first, a federation is a union of sovereignties, and so it is those owners of those sovereignties that will have to come to negotiate and armed with their own constitutions. So again, you see that it is a process to get at fresh constitutional arrangements, and that's why we put the elaborate step-by-step mechanism of getting it done to the accommodation of everybody, including those who are in government house, including those who are already, carrying arms. So those are the two things I will want to, touch as we wind up for today. Thank you again for listening.